What's up, everybody? Radx here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, and this is just a recap of a few videos that I posted already. And the reason why I'm putting these videos up now, and I'm just putting them all together, it's actually 4 videos. It's about the Anunnaki, the Greys, and the Reptilians. And the reason why I'm bringing this all up now is because the fact that, I just posted a video about the Draconian Ritual book that I'm going to be doing a review on. So I want you to get a recap on what these beings really are before, I go into start talking about, my research on, that book. I'm also going to be recapping and posting all of the Draconian videos together, the entire series that I did that was, broke down into 4 videos. So I'm gonna put all those together in one big video, and I'm gonna repost that as well, so that way you can get a recap on what Draconians really are. But this one, the first one I'm going to be doing, is going to be on the Anunnaki, the Greys, and the Reptilians. And also, if you haven't watched the video, Aliens Are Demons, It's Dangerous, you need to go and watch that video. I'm not gonna put that one back up as a recap. Just go back into the library of videos, where it says my videos, go through those and look for that one, because it's important to see, to break it down, what it means when people sit there and try to make these beings that come from other planets that are just regular beings like you and I, and they try to make them as angelic or demonic beings, and the manipulation of that over your mind and enslaving your mind, and the misconceptions of those beings and what they are. It's just using science and not magic. So yeah, I would refer to you to go watch that video as well as watching this one, so you can get these recaps on this stuff, so you can see really that these are just aliens. They're not angelic or demonic beings. So also, and it's funny because there is a woman that's online who, and that's the reason why I made that video, was because there's a woman online on YouTube who reminds me of this woman 100%. And like, she even says, God, the same way. What's the matter? Don't you believe in God? As they sit there and victimize, this young soldier, and they murder him, and they victimize other people because of her, her insanity. Well, there's a woman on YouTube who is pretty much setting her, she calls it her ministry, her people who are her followers, and she literally said in her video, people should not question me. So, and that sounds just like this woman, don't you believe in God? So yeah, you should go watch that video, Aliens Are Demons, It's Dangerous. And with that, guys, enjoy the rest of the time that you have left.
I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? RatX here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, and today we're going to be doing a 12-minute video on Anunnaki. When I say I am ultra neutral, I truly mean that I am ultra neutral. And you probably would think that I have a great hatred for the Anunnaki because of the stuff that I say in most of my videos. I don't portray them in such a great light. I'm neutral to their cause. I understand what the Anunnaki are about, and I understand what they are doing, and I'm just neutral to it. I don't consider them friend or foe to me as well. I don't want to be under Anunnaki rule no longer, but however, that's the world we live in right now. So yeah, I am neutral to the Anunnaki, and this video, when I'm going to be talking about the Anunnaki, is going to be in that perspective, in that light. and not one of an opposing side, because I do not oppose the Anunnaki. I just simply would wish them well away from me and well away from out from beneath the Anunnaki rule, under the Great Bird's rule. If you are highly religious, if you are a very religious person, do not watch this video. It should not be offending to religious beliefs. However, people get offended all the time over minor stuff that they want to be offended about. In other words, people literally are waiting for somebody to say something to trigger them, because we live in a triggered world right now. Like, everybody just looks for their trigger. What's going to set them off? Oh, you said something about the Bible and, you know, or whatever about my religion, and that's just gonna set me off, you know, for what? You know, the fact is that when I was extremely religious, and I mean very, very dedicated, very devoted, very educated in religion, that I did not let other people's, their thoughts, ideas, the things that they were saying, I did not let that infect my world at all, or my beliefs at all, because your religious beliefs should be a personal thing between you and your God. Okay, so it really, for me, it didn't do anything. However, in this world that we live in, which is insane and it's insanity, people literally will take things that other people say and let it affect them and affect their world, which means that how really strong are your religious roots? If you let somebody trigger you and make you very angry about something with your religion, and you say that's not true, well then obviously if it's affecting you, then you have your own self-doubts. Because if you don't, like I didn't, you know, when I was religious, I didn't really have a whole lot of self-doubts until the more I got educated. But towards the beginning, and as I was very serious into my religion, I had didn't need to defend my religion at all, because it had nothing to do with what those people were saying. Didn't matter. They were non-believers. They thought things the way that they thought things. They saw their world and religion the way they saw things. It didn't affect me at all. I had, you know, family who was just, you know, that at the time was family to me, that, you know, were not religious, and I would try to convert them. It didn't work. I was just like, okay, whatever, move on, you know, and they would say certain things, and it just did not affect me. It didn't bother me, because that was, it was my personal belief. So now, with that being said, if you look at the Anunnaki and you look at the oldest text, the oldest tablets, or any stone, clay tablets or anything like that, the oldest are the Anunnaki from Sumeria. Okay, that's where all this comes from. Well, that predates the Bible for, like, I don't know, like 1200 years, 1400 years or whatever. It's very, very old. It's a lot older than the Bible's text, which means that what came first? The idea of angels in the Bible that was written way later after these tablets? Or was these angels, these Anunnaki beings, were they projected as the angels, kind of inserted in as angels in the biblical text later on down the road? I believe that that is pretty much more of the case. I also believe the fact that humans are very spiritual type creatures that kind of need something to worship. You see it all the time. They always have to have the need for worship. It's like the Anunnaki came here and said, here, we're going to give you something to worship, right? Like, you're worshiping all these other crazy things and stuff. Well, now we want you to worship us. And when you stand in the presence of an Anunnaki, and I'm gonna say this as an ultra-neutral person, if I was to stand in the presence of an Anunnaki, yes, I would feel that angelic feeling. Most likely, I would look at this being, big, beautiful wings, and probably showered in gold and looking very angelic. Plus, they may project that they have some kind of illuminating light coming off of them. And that might not be because of the fact of anything else other than an illusion that they want to project to you as a human, that they are greater than thou, that they are, you know, appointed by some omnipotent God. So, of course, you would most likely stand there, and most people will probably fall to their knees and pray, because they would think, oh my gosh, angels are real, here's an angel. However, like I said, if you go back to the old Sumerian tablets, those were not angels. They were just winged men and women, well, pretty much men, and that came from another solar system, that came from the Lyra system and wherever else they come from. and they're just a winged man being. Now, here's another thing too that you guys gotta understand. More research and the more of our mad scientists are able to cross genetic species with humans, how long would it be till these mad scientists would be able to give humans wings, right? Like if you look into 500 years from now, and let's say that the human race is pushing forward and are prospering, and it becomes like a one world whole thing, and everybody stops fighting, stops killing each other, and they all just kind of come together for the collective good of humanity. How long into the future could it be to where humans actually start cross genetic species tampering, where they could actually maybe make humans have wings, right? Like they can, you know, some humans maybe having stronger skin, maybe having better eyesight, maybe being able to see in the dark, and also maybe being able to grow wings, right? So
it's called gene editing. It's altering DNA, and it's one of the things that our intelligence shows that China is doing. They've got the PRC, the People's Republic of China, has 2 million strong in its military, and it's trying to make them stronger through gene editing.
You just have to look at it more in that perspective. And when you're that more advanced than other humans on other planets, and you're able to go to those planets and you send these winged men, they're going to be worshipped, because most humans on other planets are just running around on the ground and can't fly. But then you have humanoids, humans that come from another planet who can fly, and they just say, hey, you know, these people are worshiping us, right? Like so we can get them to do our bidding. We can get them to create a doctrine. We'll just kind of nudge them in a certain way and tell them certain things, and they'll always do what we want them to do. And when other alien species come to this planet, we can have this species of humans, fight for us, fight for our cause, so that we can keep our plantation, right? Of course, we're going to keep them down. We're never going to let them get to where they're going to be able to be, you know, winged men like us, and we're going to offer them false promises. But it doesn't matter, because in the end, it's for the greater good of our species. And if you look at it in the Anunnaki's perspective, they may be thinking they're doing it for the greater good of the human species as well, by keeping them down and keeping them in check. I don't hate the Anunnaki, but the fact is that that's how they rule, right? Like, that's what they do. They've probably done this on many planets, especially with humans on those planets, because throughout the galaxy there's other planets with humans on them, and it's a good possibility that they take some of their slaves from other planets and drop them off on planets that are habitable to them. And they probably do terraforming as well, like they call this terra. And 1010 said one time that terraforming, right? You know, Earth, some people call it terraforming. So they probably do the same thing. They take their human slaves to a place that are their worshipers, and they have them, you know, populate. And that's the other thing too, right? Like in the Bible, they want you to populate as much as possible, greater numbers, which means that when another species comes here or goes to that planet, that they're going to be overwhelmed with a number of humans on that planet to fight until the Anunnaki return and help even the odds or help win that war. And that's pretty much what I believe has happened here on Earth, is the fact that they came here and they've done the same thing. Humans were here before they got here. They were already evolving. They came here and started tampering with them, as well as there was a great war that happened between the Draconian and the Anunnaki here on Earth. Draconian left, the Anunnaki came back, they tampered some more with humans, the human species kept evolving, moving forward. After time and time again, it got to the point where they started doing text, they started writing things down, and then next thing you know, here we go. You know, we have a god in a book, and we have these beings that are appointed by this god, which are winged beings. But as I said before, you go back and you look at the oldest text, it's going to show Anunnaki from another planet, not angelic beings appointed by a god. You would think that if it was the other, if it was the fact that the god and the angels were more of a true story, there would have been so much more stuff carved out in stone about these events and stuff, saying about a god and angels and stuff like that, and not so much of these beings that come from another planet that are the Anunnaki. So guys, I hope that that clears a lot of things up on what you think about the Anunnaki. I will be posting another video here soon that's going to be a bunch of interviews from people who I believe to be true, telling the truth about the Anunnaki. What I think that they're actually credible, people talking about the Anunnaki. Has anybody actually met an Anunnaki and actually had a true conversation with them? I don't know, and I don't believe so. I just believe that they haven't been back, but they will be coming back, and I believe they're coming back within a year, 2 years, maybe 3. But it's going to be here very shortly. They will be coming back, and when they do, be prepared for it. Worship them if you want. If that's your thing and you think that they're angels, go ahead and worship them. You will find out when your time comes and you perish whether all of that is true or not, and it does not affect me. All right, guys, and with that, enjoy the rest of the time that you have left on this terror. Hey, what's up, everybody? Radx here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, and today I'm going to be explaining about UFOs, the disc cylinder shaped UFOs, and the flying saucers and the gray aliens, and how they manipulate and use these saucers. But there is a couple of things that I forgot to put in this video, and I just want to mention them now. One is that I talk a lot about the flying disc, the saucers, and how that they're shaped like a magnet. Well, there's also the other commonly known, UFO, or whatever they want to call them, UAPs, or whatever the hell they call them now. But there's also the other one, which is that cylinder shape. Well, you also see magnets that are cylinder shaped too. So I wanted to also point that out because I forgot to put that in there. And the last thing I wanted to say, and which I know I missed a bunch of stuff, but however, the last thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that the magnetic pole shift on this planet shifts a lot, and when it does, and when it shifts and it moves, sometimes that screws up the controls of what they're doing when they're flying their saucers here, because it's so unstable. That must be most of the reasons why there is any type of UFO crash at all. The fact that we had those crashes like in Roswell, New Mexico, and whatnot, or even the fact that they even bounce out of stealth, right? Like when you see all of a sudden they see this UFO pop up out of nowhere, it may be because they're having a hard time readjusting to the magnetic shift in the earth, right? So while they're trying to adjust that so they can stabilize their ship, at that time is probably most likely when their cloaking device or whatever that they use fades, and that's the reason why people spot them, because otherwise the only reason why they would be seen is if they want to be seen. But if it's because they don't want to be seen, and it just has to be probably from a malfunction from the ship, and that's probably because of the fact that the magnetic pole shifts are so unstable. Lastly, I want to point out the fact that there is an interview from a reptilian woman. That was a transcript that was written, I think, back in 1999, and now you can catch that interview on YouTube. It has over 1 million views, and in that interview, she specifically says that is the reason why the UFOs crashed in Roswell, was because there was a magnetic pole shift. However, I've known about how their ships work, right after my mind was unlocked from the Draconian back in 2017. So, and I didn't hear her interview until just recently. And with that, guys, enjoy the video. Okay, I'm gonna try to explain how the gray aliens disc UFOs work, and I'm gonna do it because of the fact that I actually had actual alien contact, not with the grays that I can remember, but more with the Reptoids, obviously with the Draconians. So I'm gonna explain it the best way that I can, the best way I understand how these discs work. And not because I had to think it through. It's not because of thinking it through. It just was like boom. Like I knew right away. Years and years of seeing these discs, and I don't mean personally, because I've never seen them like personally, but seeing them on TV and hearing about people talking about these flying discs and the great aliens and stuff. I never really thought any too much about it, right? Like I had really no thoughts into it. I just thought, wow, it's just crazy that there's these discs, never really thought how they worked, right? Well, the fact is that there is never any, chemtrails or contrails. There's no exhaust fumes. There's nothing to show that they're using any type of a fuel to make these discs fly, to make them just, you know, just take off. And one of the things you hear often is that you don't hear anything, right? Like you hear nothing at all from these discs. Well, after my draconian experience and after my mind was unlocked, it just was like, it just clicked like that. Like I knew exactly how these things work. And how they work is the galaxy is actually full of magnetism, like everything is. That, you know, our planet is full of magnetism. They don't even understand really how magnetism works. And the entire galaxy is a giant magnet. It's just all magnetism. Like all these planets have magnetism in them. So if you look at magnets itself, right, and you take two magnets, like here's two. I had two disc ones that I was going to use, but I lost them. But if you take two magnets and you bring them together, they will pull. Like you get to a point, and you guys already all know this. I don't have to, this is something that you could do at home easily on your own. But if you just get them to right to the point, to right, and you just boom, and it goes there, right? So it just goes, right? The only sound that you're hearing is when these two magnets actually collide. That's the only sound that you hear. You don't hear anything from that propulsion, right? Like it goes from there to there. Now we know that they're using train systems, and I think over in China they're using train systems now that use this magnetic energy to make these trains go across the tracks. I haven't really done a lot of research on them, but my guess is there's probably no sound, right? Like, so when they see these UFOs, these flying discs that the Greys use, and they're just gone, you know, and they don't hear any sound, they don't see any type of fumes or any type of, you know, anything that shows you like what we use with modern, you know, engines, then that tells you that there's a different source that's being used. And people want to say, they're constantly saying, well, they're using a type of a gravity type machine or something. I don't know if that's just so much as the case. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe gravity and magnetism are pretty much one and the same, because they don't really understand gravity either. Like they're trying to understand it, but they really don't. But maybe gravity and magnetism are one and the same in a lot of ways. I don't know. That could be possible. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you take two magnets, right, and you flip one around the opposite way, and now you try to push them together, they're not going to go, right? They're not going to go together. And this is me trying really hard to push these two magnets together. It's something that you guys already know. I don't have to really go down all that path. So when the ships come, right, like when they're shooting across the galaxy, when these discs that they're using are going across the galaxy, and I'm not, also keep in mind, I'm not adding in the fact that yes, they have technology to phase in and out, right, to most likely go in between of different realms and things like that, as well as being invisible to your eye. Now I don't mean that they're invisible to all beings' eyes, just invisible to the human's eye, right? Like your eyesight is different than the eyesight of somebody who was born on Mars, somebody who was born on Saturn or Pluto. Your eyesight is completely different than their eyesight. Your light spectrum is different from what the cones in your eyes, and the spectrums of what you can see is completely different than if you're on a different planet, born on a different planet, because of the distance of the light of the sun or suns. Maybe there's 2 or 3 suns. There are some planets where there is no darkness, and then there's some planets where it's pretty much dark, right? Like, so the beings that evolve there, their spectrums and the cones in their eyes are going to see things differently. If you go to Mars, right, like we keep hearing about people just going to Mars and just like it's like no big deal. When people actually are on Mars, humans who are born here, earthlings on Earth, go to Mars, they're going to see things differently, right? When they get on that planet, things are going to be different because the light spectrum of the sun is not exactly the same as where it is from here from Earth. So when you don't see these ships, like when these ships phase in and out, it may not just be that they're phasing in and out of this realm and into another realm. It may just be possible they're adjusting whatever inside of that ship so that your eyes as a human cannot see these things. In other words, like the animals on this planet and on Earth, they see things differently than the way humans see things. Why is that? Why is it that their eyesight is different from a human's eyesight? Which also tells you, are humans actually from Earth? You know, when all these other animals that we see that evolved here, their eyesight is completely different. So let's get back to the fact of how this magnetism works and how it works for these flying saucers. We're going to take this, we're going to make this as Earth. Okay, so we're going to draw a big picture of Earth here, and then we're going to take another one here, and we're going to make another planet over here. We'll call this Neptune, this blue planet. I don't know if you guys can see that, but we'll say that this is Neptune, that's Earth, and we'll say that this purple one is Venus. Okay? Let's say that this is Venus. Or wait, you know what? Let's say this purple one is Saturn. Let's say that that's Saturn. And let's go way back here, way off in the distance. And let's say that this is Jupiter. This big sucker right here is Jupiter. Now, I don't know if you can hear me very well, but so if this ships want to go from all the way from Jupiter, and it might not be correct how I have the planet set up, obviously. I'm just kind of winging it just to get the point across. But let's say you're coming from Jupiter and you want to come to Earth, and you're using a magnetic disc, right? This magnetic disc. And each one of these planets are like giant magnets. They all have the magnetism that can be manipulated. There's a push-pull with the magnet, right? Like there's a push-pull. So if I want to go from Jupiter to Earth, I'm going to revert my magnetic energy from my disk. I'm going to revert it so it goes the opposite, to push off of Jupiter. And as I'm reverting the push away from Jupiter, I'm going to do, maybe I kind of put this kind of crazy there. I'm going to put a pull onto this planet over here, and I also have a pull going to this other planet. Like I have this magnetic energy that I can bounce between those to navigate, to zip across quickly to get over here. So now that push that's coming from Jupiter, that push, I'm going to attract the magnetism and go to the positive to pull towards what we call it, Neptune, to pull towards Neptune, right? So I'm using that push. Here comes my push. I'm pushing off of here. I'm going this way, but I want to go there. I'm using that pull that's pulling me this way, but as I straighten my line out because I want to get there, I'm now going to pull over here, which is going to give me this double pull here. And as I pull here like this, which is going to pull me forward and pushing me this way, now I'm going to rotate my magnetism, my magnetic energy. I'm going to flip it outwards, so that way I get a push. So the moment I push off of here, and as I'm going towards Earth, I'm going to push, I'm going to pull, I'm going to flip for a push, and then a pull going this way. You understand? It's real basic. It's real easy to understand. There's a push, a pull, a push, and a pull to get me towards Earth. And the moment I get closer to Earth, now I'm going to turn my magnetism back to slow it down. I'm going to manipulate it to slow it down so that once I get to Earth, boom, I'm right there. Now, that also explains the fact that you don't need fuel. Like, you won't need to go places to fuel up. Now, they may possibly need something in the water, because once they get here, it seems like almost all these craft immediately have to get to the water. Like, they don't just come to Earth and just come and just hover over top of just wherever like you see in the movies. It seems like usually when they get to Earth, they immediately want to go into the ocean, or like here in Ohio, into the Great Lakes. Wherever there's a big body of water, they need to get in there. And it may not just be because of cloaking reasons, but because of the designs of the ship and the way they're designed, that's something to do with the water and the resource in the water that does something to maybe replenish something to do with the magnetic energy. I don't know how it works. That's like magnets. Does magnets do anything? Does the water actually do anything to a magnet? Is it kind of like what's the difference between a magnet in just open space and how it moves versus a magnet underwater and how it moves? Is there a difference? I don't know. I haven't done a whole lot of research on that. Some of you may be able to know that, may know the answer to that. But is there a difference between the air and the water and using magnetic energy? Now, let me explain something to you about the gray aliens themselves. And I don't know as much as Jim Sparks does. I have had interactions with grays, just like most of you have had interaction with the gray aliens. You just don't remember it. Now, I know that I had interactions with Draconian because I have evidence of showing that, and things have happened to unlock my mind so I understand things better and more clearly. However, with the gray aliens, I don't really have a whole lot of memories of interacting with them like, you know, the very few people who actually do. But what I can tell you is that what color is a magnet? A magnet is gray, right? They're gray. What color are these aliens? They're gray. Why is a magnet not blue, yellow, purple, pink? You know, maybe they are on other planets or something like that. I don't know. But why is it always this same color as the gray alien, right? So here's one of the things that you see a lot now, that the gray aliens are not just gray, but there's like, they're saying that a lot of them are pink actually. They have like a fleshy color. Well, so they obviously, if their skin is not actually that gray skin, then it is just a gray suit, right? Like they put the suit over top of them. With that suit, does the suit give them some type of magnetic energy, some type of magnetic manipulation, right? Also, you also got to understand the fact that these beings are not from Earth. They're from another planet. And on that planet, maybe inside the way that they evolved with a magnetic type of substance inside of their body. Like their body, like whereas here on Earth, you know, the Earthlings are what, 70-something% water, 80% water, right? Well, what if you're from another planet and in that water and in our bodies we have all these different types of minerals? Well, what if on a different type of planet their body is made up of a lot less water and more of a magnetic energy, or like more of a magnetic mineral, right? So, and if their body is, I know this is going to sound hokey and kind of nerdy, or it doesn't make a lot of sense, but like when you see Magneto from the X-Men, right, and you see how he manipulates things, it's very possible that there are beings who can do that, and the gray aliens are something that can do that. And I don't mean that they can control the magnetic energies like Magneto, where they can actually make a whole entire bridge lift and kind of drop it somewhere else. I mean the fact that just basic, just small magnetic things where they can just pull those things to them very easily. Like if they needed to move like a couple of stones or something and they actually have the magnetic energy in them, that they could just make it just come right to their hand. So if they were designed this way, or you know, even someone's designed, if they evolved this way, obviously they would understand magnetic energy a lot better than we would here, right? Like it's already a part of them. They would have evolved with understanding how to manipulate magnetic energy. We can do things here on this earth like that humans can do that maybe other beings can't do on other planets. Okay, so basically the easiest way to explain this to you, hold a piece of paper in your hand, right? And just put the paper here in your hand. Now, to an animal may not understand this. If you do this in front of a dog or a cat or something, they may kind of freak out, be like, how did you do that? Think that you're magic, that you have magical powers. But if you put a piece of paper or a feather in your hand and you just simply blow at it, right? You just blow, like not a hard, big huff, but just a slight blow. Now this paper is moving on your hand. You guys already know this is basic. This is like something that we don't have, like we're like, yeah, whatever, I blew on it, no big deal, right? Well, to other beings, maybe on other planets or something that's not as much evolved, that doesn't understand what the hell you're doing, they just see that this paper, you're holding this paper in your hand, now it's blown away. To you, that's basic. You got it. You understand it. But you need to separate yourself from yourself. Separate yourself from being human and try to understand from another perspective. It's the same thing with a gray alien manipulating magnetic energy. Being able to make that piece of paper move because you're using the oxygen inside of your lungs to blow and make it move. Well, they may be able to do the same thing with just their hands, that they can just or whatever, their mind. Obviously, telepathy is throughout the entire galaxy, and humans also have telepathy. It's just been shut off and blocked so that you can't use it. Now, telepathy also can actually give you a type of telekinesis, which means you'll be able to move things with your mind. And how you do that, there's a whole another subject on that. Removing your conscious from your body and being able to move something. It's as simple as blowing that piece of paper. Now, so how do the gray aliens actually make their disc move? Well, I've never been inside of a disc that I can remember. I've never actually been inside of a disc that I can remember. But here's what I can tell you. It's a good possibility that when you go inside of a disc, that there is no captain's chair where you sit down. Maybe they do have chairs, I don't know. I don't really think that they really have this type of controls like what you see in a modern vehicle today, right? Like when we get in vehicles today, there's always a gas, there's a brake, there's emergency brakes, there's a steering wheel, and there's all these things for all these controls for our arms and legs and all this to move, right? Well, let's say that you could control your vehicle the way that you blew that piece of paper on your hand, right? Like you could just control it with your voice, right? Like your voice, which is coming, that's actually happening now, right? But let's say that you can control it with your voice and you get inside the vehicle and there's absolutely no physical controls that you actually need to use your limbs, like the start, the stopping, and to steer it, right? So let's say that the gray aliens, and I don't want to say let's say because I'm pretty sure this is pretty much how it works. When they go inside the disc, they've already have it constructed to where they don't need control. So this also makes it harder for other beings from other galaxies or also on their planet to steal their ships, right? To just get on board like you see in like the Avengers or other movies and stuff like that, where you just jump on some alien craft and it's just like any other spaceship. It's just like on Earth where we got a steering wheel and all this and these controls. That's just not really the case in the galaxy with all these other spaceships. They don't work like that, man. That's primitive. The way we have machines here are very primitive. They're only like, I don't know, what's the automobile, like 100 years old or something? That's nothing. You're talking about beings like the Draconians, who, what I hear, are 2 billion years more advanced than the human race. They've been doing space travel for over 2 billion years. And the gray aliens, who knows how long they've been doing space travel. So their ships have been more redefined and a lot more advanced than what you would pretty much comprehend, that you can just jump in and just take off with the ship and just fly wherever, okay? So if these beings, the gray aliens, can actually manipulate these magnetic energies, and they would design their ships this way so that when they get in the ship automatically is connected to them, right? Like they are part of that ship. They are a part of this thing. Like they're a part of it. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's not like there's a separation between the gray and the ship. Once the gray gets onto the ship, it's part of them, man. And whoever's controlling it, and maybe they're all controlling it. Maybe it works because if they're all telepathy, they all use telepathy, they all know where they're going. So if something happens to one of the grays, the rest of the grays got it, right? Like if 4 or 5 of them fall out, there's another, other ones there who got it, and they understand where to go and what to do, and so they could just fly the ship. They're all part of that ship. That is part of them. So when they get on the ship and they get inside this thing, I'm going to draw one real quick. We'll use this big green thing here, okay? So when the grays get inside of this ship, the same principle applies when they get inside of the disc, right? It's circular, like if you have a magnet, right? The circular magnet. This way, it has that magnetic energy going all the way around it, so you can get that push-pull. So if we want to leave from that planet there, all we have to think is push, pull, and push-pull, pulling us across. So the entire ship, there's no forward, there's no arrow, right? There's no front haul, there's no rear. So it doesn't matter where we are. So if I'm going this way to here, all I gotta do is go this way. Now we're going this way. All I can do is think you go that way, we're going that way. There's no forward, backwards. It's a circle, man. It's a circle. Everything is a circle. So anyhow, I hope that makes a little bit more sense to you. I hope that you understand the fact that gray aliens, the fact that their skin, oh, one more thing I wanted to point out. Now, it's possible that they could teach a human how to fly a disc. And how would they teach them how to fly a disc? Well, first, they would probably have to teach them how to use their telepathy. Secondly, they'd probably design this human a suit, a gray alien suit. Now, the ones that have the pink flesh, that they say are pink flesh, and they put the suits on, they may design suits for humans to wear the suit, and then teach them through telepathy how to actually, now we got this going on, and teach them how to actually use the magnetic energy in the suit. They may design the suit for the human so that the human can actually fly that disc, so that they could do the same thing. They could fly it, right? Like if they just understand how to manipulate, maybe they put a mask on them or a helmet on them where the helmet actually helps them manipulate using their telepathy and helping them to manipulate the magnetic energy inside of that disc, which also tells you another thing too. It may very well be possible that if you're if you have strong telepathy and you have magnetic energies that you can manipulate, you may be able to shut people's consciousness off like that. You may be able to shut a human's consciousness off just like that. So we got to really look deeper into the magnetic energy. The fact that their suits and these gray aliens look exactly like a gray magnet, and the fact that their disc, their machines are gray. It's all the same color. It's all that magnetic color. And that's why you don't hear them coming and you don't hear them going. And that's why when they go and they completely, and they just take off like an instant, it's the same thing as when you flip two magnets the opposite way, boom, they just, like if you take two massive magnets and now you flip them over, wham, they're just gonna shoot apart, and there's no sound. They're just gone. And magnetic energy is pretty much what the Greys have. I think that is their main resource. I think that is their main manipulation, is magnetic energy. And with that, enjoy the rest of the time that you guys have left. Hey, what's up everybody? RatX here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, bringing you 12 minutes of why you should hate the reptilians, or reptoids, which we're going to get into that too, versus the humans on this planet who occupy the crust of the planet, versus the reptoids who live inside of the planet. Obviously, I said this before, you're safer in a planet than you are on a planet. However, in the upcoming war, I will not be taking sides. When I say that I'm ultra neutral, I truly mean I'm ultra neutral. Although you would think I would be a traitor to the human race to not choose the side of the human race, but however, through time and time again throughout history, as a human, as humans know, we have always been told lies of why wars began.
On August 7, 1964, they passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, granting the president unprecedented military powers.
Our government is united in its determination to take all necessary measures in support of freedom and in defense of peace in Southeast Asia.
U.S. troops endured more than a decade of fierce combat that eventually brought the legality of the resolution into question.
A lot of documents have been made public since the war, and it appears that perhaps there really wasn't an attack, or if there was an attack, it was sort of freelance by the gunboat commanders.
Congress ultimately repealed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution in 1971, but it is remembered today for igniting one of our nation's most contentious wars.
We've stopped looking, they're not there.
No,
How did that happen?
It just kind of was, it evolved. The fact that there wasn't weapons evolved. I mean, when we first got in there and started looking around and didn't find anything, you get that kind of sinking feeling that was a period at the end of the sentence there. And yeah, I felt terrible about it. And on the other hand, those reports did point out that Saddam Hussein was very dangerous, that he had the capacity to make weapons, and I'm convinced that if he were in power today, the world would be a lot worse off.
We are told by someone who was a witness that Saddam announced that Palestine is Arab, as one of his final words, long a champion of Arab causes, pan-Arab causes.
Propaganda, which are wars of humans versus humans. So the war between the humans versus the reptilians or reptoids, I'm sure that there is going to be a lot of misleading and a lot of lies that are going to lead up to the great reason why you should hate them and why you will fear them and want to see them eradicated. This is ingrained in who you are as a human, and I obviously will not be choosing a side in that war. Let's get started on the whole thing with why do I say reptoids? Well, because a reptoid is a reptilian humanoid. So that's actually the pronunciation of what we should be calling them. However, I have to dumb it down for the dummies and just continue to say reptilians because that's the only way that they'll understand or try to understand any of the things that I'm talking about. It's the same thing for me as calling Native Americans Indians.
Invader. He got lost coming here, and he's the one that named us Indians because he thought he was in India.
However, still to this day, people call them Indians. So that is the type of stuff that I'm talking about when I say about the propaganda and the lies and all that and building up the hatred and the fear. So if we go all the way back to Genesis in the Bible, right? That was where the fear very first began, of the fear of the reptile, right? The reptilian who comes to the Garden of Evil. Of course, the reptilian cannot taint the man. He has to use the woman to taint the man, and he has to go through her to get to the man, also demonizing the woman as well, saying that she was deceitful and that she followed along with this other villain in the very beginning of the story in Genesis. Even though we look at that is the story of the beginning of the earth, which we know now that the earth is 4.5 billion years old, and that the earliest biblical text was actually written 3,400 years ago. 1200 BC was when the very first biblical text was written, even though the oldest text in the world predates that writings, which was actually 2,600 years BC. So for 1,400 years before any biblical text was written, there was 1,400 years of text that was actually written in the world. Going back to 4.5 billion years ago, that's when the story supposedly takes place. You can do the math on that as well. And then if you look at how long human beings have been on this planet, well, we go back to only 300,000 years. That is not enough time for a being to evolve from an early primate 300,000 years to this point right now. In fact, which makes you believe that they, humans, are not from this planet, not from planet Earth, which means that humans would be considered an occupier of this planet, which is a good reason of why having a biblical text put in place to tell you that when you die, that you leave this planet behind because this planet belongs to evil and you should not be here. You want to go someplace better. Whereas the reptilians who are from this planet, who evolved on this planet, because you got to look at the fact that there are 56 million years of a Jurassic era to let beings evolve into highly intelligent, highly functional humanoid beings, which would be reptoids during a reptilian era. Of course, it's safer to go inside of the earth and underground to build your cities from inside of caves and inside the earth than it is on top of the crust of the earth. When you have bronchiosauruses running around in herds, or when you have pterodactyls flying over top, or other big prehistoric birds who are just going to fly over and swoop up and take you off a scaffolding and just take off with you. As a highly functional species, of course, you'd have to go inside of the earth, away from the dangers on top of the crust of the earth. But if you have another species who's brought here from the stars from somewhere else, which would be humans, reptilians look very different from humans. So it's because they look different, because they look rough, because their manners and their customs are very, very different than the humans' manners and everything in the way that they look. Humans are predetermined to fear them, to hate them. This we have seen humans do to other humans. 400 or 500 years ago, when the settlers came here to America, the same thing happened. You had people that were here, that were natives, that were very weird, very different, and they didn't look the same as the Europeans. They weren't as what the Europeans would consider as their type of intelligence. They didn't do the type of customs and the things that they were into.
The U.S. has a long and brutal legacy of attempting to eradicate Native Americans. For centuries, they colonized Native American lands and murdered their populations. They forced them west and pushed them into small, confined patches of land. But Native Americans resisted. A Board of Indian Commissioners report said, instead of dying out under the light and contact of civilization, the Indian population is steadily increasing. And that was an obstacle to total American expansion. So the U.S. found a new solution to absorb and assimilate them.
The human species were brought as slaves from another planet to this planet to do what they're doing, and it's the same thing. They brought the African Americans to this country and did the same thing. They had to beat them down. They had to show them their dominance so that way they could finally, at some point in time, integrate them into their way of life, into their system, finally take the shackles and the chains off of them, finally tell them, force them to stop speaking African, their native language, and force them to start speaking English and to start following their religious ways and their doctrine and their way of life and their systems. And that is the only way that they would be accepted.
Originally, the Latin Niger just meant black.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, nigga.
What's your name?
My name is Toby.
Hi. That's a good nigger.
We have invented the nigger. I didn't invent him. White people invented him.
So yes, when the reptilians finally emerge, when they come up to fight for the crust of the planet, or when the humans start to go inward into the planet to the point to where it becomes a problem and the reptilians want to drive them out of the interior of the planet, then that war will begin. And of course, it's going to be the same thing as what you saw here, just in America alone, in just the past 400 years. You're going to hear a lot of people call them derogatory names, calling them lizards, calling them snakes, saying very nasty and mean things about them. Once they've captured them and they forced them into their way of life, just like they did the same thing to the Native Americans and the African, then as time goes on, then you'll start seeing later on, way off into the future, after most of you are dead and gone, you will see people who will come up and speak up for the remaining left of the reptilians that are there, and trying to say that, look, these are beings that are from this planet. They were here long before the humans were. We should respect them. They were just trying to protect the planet. And that is why you have to hate the reptilians, because it's the only way that you as a human, especially as an American, know how to do things, how to deal with something that you do not understand, and something that's very different, something's very strange to you. And like I said, their way of life, their customs and way they look is exactly what is going to be used to propagate the war, as well as this whole thing that's coming out where people are saying that the reptilians are running the country, that anyone that you deem as bad, if you're on one side, if you're on a Republican side, of course you're saying that the reptilians are all the Democrats who are running the country. And if you're on the Democratic side, of course you're saying all the Republicans, people over there running the country, are reptilians. You hear it all the time. People are saying that you can look it up. They say George Bush is reptilian, and then they say Barack Obama's reptilian. So how can you vote for either side when you're saying that one on one side's reptilian, one's on the other side? Maybe it could be propaganda and lies. Let that sink in and think about that before you join the war, before you join the wrong side. Become ultra neutral. It's the only way to move forward as a human species, because once this war begins, the Anunnaki will return to help tip the balance in the humans' favor, where the humans will be able to win the war over the reptilians. But all of that won't mean anything and when the Draconians arrive on this planet, because then the ultra neutral are the only people who are going to be able to survive what is coming. Hey, what's up everybody? Radx here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, and today I am just bringing you the music video that I promised to put together with the song Blood on My Hands. If you're religious sensitive, again, you're not going to want to watch this video. Of course, I find it very difficult to talk anything about the Anunnaki and not have the ties to religion. Because, obviously the whole thing with religion coming out later on after, the Sumerian tablets, way long after the Sumerian tablets were created, then you had, the rise of the Bible 2,000 years later. So, yes, you have to kind of tie those two things in together. Now, here's what I want to say. I take the Bible with a grain of salt now after, many years of learning stuff about the Bible and really studying when I was a Christian, which is the reason why I kind of was like, wait a minute, a lot of stuff don't make sense. Now, this is just me. I'm not trying to change anybody's religious views on anything. That's not what any of this stuff's about. You can learn yourself and you make your own call on what you think about it. But for me, that's what happened. And now after, many, many years later and learning about the Anunnaki and learning about the Sumerian tablets and all those things, and seeing that there was stuff that was actually out there 2,000 years prior before that, it makes even more sense, where all that stuff came from. So I don't take the Bible as a literal document, and especially not Revelations. However, it's not to say that Revelations wasn't inspired by someone who was Anunnaki, who was in touch with, one of the Greeks. Because, by the way, if you didn't know this, it was written in Greek. It wasn't written in Hebrew. It wasn't written in any of the native tongue of the Jews who, the Bible is pretty much where it all comes from. It was written by the Greeks. So that's also another suspect thing. However, like I said, Revelations could have been inspired by a Anunnaki who was pretty much telling you that they're going to bring war to this planet. And now that I look back and I reflect back of what I've read in Revelations and really what it's all saying, it is very much like, like they're bringing their war here. And it's almost like they're telling you that, hey, we're going to bring a war to Earth. I don't know any other, religious doctrine outside of an Anunnaki connection that talks about bringing another war towards Earth. There may be out there, but this is the most mainstream. Half the world believes in this stuff. So, half the human race believes in it. So I'm going to say that has a little bit more stock than others in some ways. So it is kind of a weird area. It's very gray. Yeah, I put that in there, gray. Kind of a very gray area. But however, like I said, when you look at it now and you go back and you really take a look at Revelations, it's almost like they're telling you that they're going to bring a bloody war. I remember the first time I read Revelations, it was a traumatic ending, right? Because you have Genesis the beginning, you have, Revelations the end. And when you get to the end, it's just all like this, it says that, Jesus comes down from heaven and cast war on the earth and upon all the nations and all this and stuff. And it's very traumatic. And like the whole thing with the birds, like I said, if the angels were of spirit and not of flesh, then why do they need to feast on humans on earth? And that's exactly what it says in that passage that I was reading. And that is my Bible. That's 150 years old. But it says that they will come here and feast on kings and army and bound and unbound. That means slaves and not slaves. And that's exactly what that means. It means people in jail because they're slaves. But why in the hell would angels need to eat anyhow? Doesn't make any sense. But yes, if you have carnivorous creatures that come from another planet who are Anunnaki who do eat men, which I know it may seem kind of weird, but however, when you watch this video, it may be a little disturbing to you what you see, but however, like I said, if you're religiously sensitive, please do not watch the video. And with that, enjoy the rest of the time that you have left.
Broken into, torn apart, worlds colliding, and there we are. Here I stand, painted red, with thoughts of whispers inside my head. Dirty water, wash me clean. You'll always be a part of me. There's blood on my hands. There's blood on my hands. Lights are fading out. I feel it coming down. Open up my eyes and see the weight inside. 'Cause here I stand, painted red. Dirty water, wash me clean. You'll always be a part of me. There's blood on my hands. There's blood on my hands. If you hear me, I'm sorry, 'cause it's been like this way too long. There's blood on my hands. There's blood on my hands. Dirty water, wash me clean. You'll always be a part of me. There's blood on my hands. There's blood on my hands. There's blood on my hands.
Welcome You can call me Radix, the ultra neutral, the one from 72. Doing more and more research and more digging, it now is more apparent to me that we are in a natural reality dealing with an alien species that has hacked time. And because of that, they have left a huge piece of evidence, which is the year 1972, and how that year actually connects to the year 2020, and how I am the only person in the world that is educating people and bringing the message and was able to predict the election in 2020 through great detail, as well as other predictions that also came true that have to do with looking at the year 1972 and the time hack and how it affected the year 2020 and will lead us into civil war, as well as a galactic war that is clearly upon all of us that is coming down. And you'll see that evidence by coming here and looking at the evidence that I present. I'm also going to be teaching you things about how flying saucers work, things about different alien species like the reptilians, the Anunnaki, and about the Greys, because I myself had a reptilian experience where my mind was unlocked, and that is one of the great reasons why I'm able to present all of this knowledge, because up until the year 2017, when my mind was unlocked, not long after that, I was starting to able to see the holes in the reality, see all the connections of the things that were going on that led to a time hack, which tells us learn from them and push forward as humanity, and not to suppress one another and suppress our own species. So if you're ready to have your mind unlocked, if you're ready to receive the message that nobody else in the world is talking about, if you're ready to see the truth, if you're ready to understand and look at the evidence, then welcome to Rat X Files.